Hello!
Hello!
What's fucking poppin', y'all?
How's it going? It's been a minute. This is our second time recording this podcast. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's been... When was the last time we uploaded something? Like early November?
Yeah. It's been
So it's been about 9 months.
God.
Wait, that can't be right. November's not 3 months from now, is it? Oh, fuck.
It sure is.
Totally is.
No, it's 3 months from now. More like 3.5.
Yeah.
2020's almost over, guys.
Oh, but there's barely any time for things to get better before that happens.
Things never were gonna get better. Anyway.
I was poppin', y'all.
We went on an unintentional hiatus with this podcast.
Yeah, didn't mean to, but here we are. We missed a lot of things that happened because they would happen and we'd be like, we should do a podcast on that, and then we just wouldn't. But we're back and we're talking about Hamilton because that's relevant, right? It is, actually. For once, we're talking about something that still matters.
Do that quite a lot.
That's fair, actually.
At least we used to before we would take 3-month hiatuses after every podcast.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, Hamilton, the movie of the stage production, was released on Disney Plus a little while ago. We watched it about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago. And we're going to talk about it because it was good. It was really good.
I understand why everyone loves it so much now.
Yeah, I'd heard a couple of the songs. I'm not sure if I had heard any of them in their entirety, but I at least heard bits and pieces of a couple of songs. And they were good, but, I don't really get into musicals. They're not a thing that I'm super interested in, but I tend to like them when I watch them. Because I like stories and I like music, so kind of works out. But I was afraid it wouldn't not that it wouldn't live up to the hype, but just that it was, I was a little kind of I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I went into it expecting to like it, but I was like, oh shit, this is really fucking good.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned that it's kind of like when something gets really hyped up, it's to a point you start being okay, yeah, and at a point you're okay, I'm sure it's good, but I'm sure it's not like that.
Yeah.
I was
I'm sure it was a good time, but at some point I was just how much of this is just people being oh, Hamilton, yeah, Hamilton good, but it is oh fuck, it's good. Really good. you know?
And it was all written by one dude.
I know, that's legendary. Who does that? But the songs are slapping, the choreography's slapping, the stage design's slapping. I liked that little turny thing.
Yeah, the
spinny stage. And when that started moving for the I kind of noticed it before it started moving, because I noticed that there was a circle in the stage where the wooden boards didn't line up with the rest of it, and I was that's weird, and then it started turning, and I was oh shit, because I don't know why, but I really enjoy, fun stages.
You still don't it's they're becoming increasingly common, but it's you still don't go into a stage play expecting shit like that.
Yeah.
That level of production. Also, for some reason, it just reminded me of one point in the play where you can see a crew guy's hand sticking out of that trap door that's in the stage for people to pop out of, and then at the end of the performance the guy sticks his hand and waves at the crowd.
That was hilarious. I loved Floor Hand Man.
It was great.
Yes. So yeah, it was really good. It was very vibrant and energetic because like there was just like like the choreography was very energetic. When they danced, they really were fucking breaking it down.
They were going
they were really going all the way, and I appreciate it. And it just like, and like a lot of the songs have like a lot of like oomph to them, you know, so it just kind of makes you like be like, hell yeah, let's fucking go, boys. And I appreciate
they
that.
were probably all so exhausted at the end. Like, I know that like any sort of like 2.5 hour stage performance has gotta be exhausting, but like, man, they're like singing and dancing and like jumping around.
It was bonkers, dude. Like, there's just a really nice energy to it. You like feel it in your ribs.
Yeah.
And the flow of all the songs is really nice. You know, the more rap that I hear, the more I'm like, maybe I just don't like trap rap. Because, like, you know, most of the, like, time I'm just kind of like, oh, I just don't really like rap that much. Like, it's not like, oh, rap's bad. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of the rap that you hear on the radio, I'm like, this kind of sound like garbage.
Yeah, I kind of used to think I, like, hated rap music, but the more I learned about it, the more I'm like, oh, it's just trap rap specifically that I hate. The rest of it is, like, fine.
Because, like, you know, oh man, you peeking the microphone. Stop screaming.
I'm sorry.
So
God. Fight me.
But it's like, I like the flow of rap a lot. I like when, like, in good rap, like, it flows in, like, a really, like, kind of, like, catchy, exciting way, and it, like, comes across as, like, very, like, impressive, and, like, it just sounds really cool. So I liked that a lot.
Yeah, that was one thing about this, was like, when I first heard about it, I'm like, okay, it sounds pretty good, but, you know, it's like a rap. I know a lot of it's like rap and hip-hop kind of, and I don't really like that, but, like, I really liked the songs. This is really, really good.
They're all, like, yeah, they're very good. And then especially because rap's about, like, kind of, like, talking fast. It was, like, I was afraid that I would miss a lot of the story, because it normally takes me a couple of listens to a song to kind of get the gist of what they're saying, and even then, there have been many times, Glitch can attest, where I just fill in the blanks with what I think they're saying, and then it turns out that it's absolutely not what they were saying.
Yeah.
So I was a little, like, every time I go into a musical, I'm a little apprehensive about, like, understanding what's going on through the story that's conveyed through song. But then especially with, like, this one, because I knew that, you know, a lot of it was rap, so a lot of the time they were going to be, like, talking fast. But it was really easy to follow along. There was obviously some things that I missed, just, like, in, like, you know, and every time you, like, watch a movie or watch a play, you're not going to pick up every single line that's said. But it was pretty easy to follow along. They like, enunciated everything, like, super well. So it wasn't like I was just like, they would like start singing and I'd be like, okay, I got no clue what's happening.
They didn't go like too fast.
Yeah, they didn't go too fast. They didn't like, you know, they didn't go all Patrick Stump on me with their delivery. So I knew what was happening.
Yeah, that's good. The music was really good. Again, all of it was written by, like, one dude, which is...
I know, which is just bonkers. Like, all the songs were really good.
Like, Lin-Manuel Miranda must be very talented.
Very talented.
He, like, wrote the whole play, all the music, he composed all the music for it, wrote all the lyrics, which is most of the play, but it's like he also gotta, you know, like, plot out, like, the story and stuff, so, like, that's part of writing. And
he wrote the whole thing, he composed the whole thing, he starred in it,
he could
like,
sing, he could
homie.
dance. Like, calm down, maybe.
Like... Is there like a triple threat in acting where it's like you can act, you can sing, and you can dance? That's like your triple threat. He's that, plus being able to like write and compose an entire musical. He's like a quadruple. What's the five?
I don't know.
He's that threat. he's you know, like, that's very impressive. Kudos.
Who's this passionate about Alexander Hamilton?
That's true. That's a good point. But yeah, it's very good. We were talking about how, like, you know, with, like, the hype around it. Before we watched it, we were talking about how it's, like, a strange phenomenon among musicals that you don't really get in other forms of media, because there are a ton of people who will, like, stan musicals that they've never seen, which, like, makes sense because musicals, and especially Hamilton, cost, like, both your kidneys to get even a shitty seat for.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're hard to get
Are
tickets
those people
to.
who, like, got tickets to Hamilton, like, before it got really popular, was really in a high demand, were probably, like...
Thank God.
They were probably having a laugh. But everyone else suddenly, like, they got into, like, in the first few performances, and then suddenly everyone else was, like, just...
But yeah,
chopping off their left arm to get tickets.
But yeah, it's hard to get tickets to Broadway musicals, and then, you know, we were kind of like, I mean, you know, you can listen to the soundtrack, you know, maybe you can look up, like, a synopsis of it. I found out on Twitter that there's, like, a bootleg of Hamilton that went around for a while, and it's really funny because from what I gathered, there was, like, one of the actors, like, totally clocked that someone was recording it and, like, stared directly into the camera a lot, which is very funny.
I wonder if it was one of, like, the OG actors.
I don't know. But it's kind of, and like that, if you watch that bootleg, then obviously you've seen the musical to some extent.
Just, like, somewhat shittily, but...
Yeah, but, like, you know, most of the time it's like, you know, you can listen to the soundtrack, you could read a plot synopsis, but it's like, you don't get the whole experience. You don't get to, like, see them acting, or you don't get to, like, you know... hear the scenes of dialogue in between.
Like, that's the most
songs.
important thing. Is, like, you know, the songs obviously in a good musical should convey story, but it's like there's still, like, you know, scenes of, like, dialogue in between. So it's like, how do you know, like, the rest of it isn't just, like, really shitty? And it's like, how do you, like, fully appreciate something when you can't, like, get all the story, because all of the story isn't in the music, because there's dialogue breaks in musicals, right?
No, not in this one. There's no dialogue. It's all song. And it was like, funny because I kind of felt like that John Mulaney bit with the Salt and Pepper Diner, where he was talking about how it's like when you play What's New Pussycat on loop, your first thought when it starts playing the second time isn't, oh, someone's playing What's New Pussycat again. Your first thought is, What's New Pussycat is a lot longer than I thought it was. That's what it's like, because, like, the opening song is pretty long, and then they, like, keep going, and then you're like, oh, this is a lot longer of a song, and then they go into, like, Aaron Burr, so, and you're like, oh, they're just going right into the next song, and then, like, the deeper into it you go, the more you're like, okay,
they're not gonna stop.
They're not gonna stop. There's only going to be song here.
I think the moment I realized that was much earlier. That was, like, when, at the very start of Aaron Burr, so when, like, Hamilton walks up to Aaron Burr and they start talking, and I was gonna be like, okay, now I get, because, like, I'd heard a lot about the music, and I'd heard snippets of the music, so I knew the music was good, but I was like, I wonder what, like, you know, the dialogue and, like, the acting, like, just regular acting scenes are gonna be like, because I've never heard anything about those, which I realize now is because they don't exist, but it's... But then they go up and they start talking, and I realize that, you know, the things they're saying are still, like, rhyming, and they're not, like, rapping exactly. It comes off, like, much more, like, it comes off pretty much just, like, slam poetry or something, and I'm like, oh, they're not just gonna, like, talk like people, they're gonna do this the whole time.
But I think that really works. Because one of the things that I really like about this musical is how well they blended hip-hop and, like, like rap with like show tunes, because you know there's a lot of, you know, like rap, and then there's also a lot of like show tune energy going on there, and like sometimes it's all in one song and it blends together really well, and it's like you think in your brain when someone's like, it's a hip-hop musical, you like, those don't mix. But like they do. I mean, obviously if you like, you gotta have someone do it well, but like it's kind of like it worked so well, and it was kind of like I kept thinking like, why don't more musicals do this? Because like even in the parts where they're not really singing and it's more like slam poetry, it still keeps up the like rhythm of it and like the musicality of it. So it's like, why have a dialogue that's delivered normally when you could like fully embrace the musical part and just have it all have that cool like musical like beat rhythm to it.
Yeah, like I was like, when they like started essentially just like rapping at each other instead of talking, I was like, oh, cool, this is gonna be fun. This is what the whole like thing is. Like,
and they didn't even do that much. Like, it was still mostly singing anyway. There was just a couple of lines where they were more like slam poetry.
Yeah.
But it was real good. I thought that worked like really well, and I mean, I won't be surprised if more musicals start incorporating stuff like that into it. It's definitely changed the game of musical theater.
And like, again, I know that like any sort of stage performance, my throat's
good job, you did it.
Dying. But
stop it.
Get some help. Every stage performance is probably like exhausting and hard on the vocal cords, but they're literally like singing like non-stop for like 2.5 hours, especially like the dude who is really like Aaron Burr and Hamilton in like, most of the songs.
They're in every song.
Yeah.
Like, one of them at least is in every single song in the musical, I'm pretty sure. And so it's like those two guys must have been absolutely dead on the floor by the end of it, because like they don't catch a single break except for the goddamn intermission.
Just got off of their first run as the characters on Broadway and then didn't speak for like a month.
Vow of silence.
So their vocal cords can reconstruct themselves.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of vocal cords, everybody has a super unique voice. There's a lot of characters. But it's like, you know, they're all like very distinct from each other. You don't like get them confused at all. Like, you're not like, wait, was that guy this guy or the other guy? Because it's like which guy is this actor supposed to be again? Because like you hear their voice and you're automatically like, that's what Lafayette sounds like, and then you just like the rest of the show you're just gonna be like,
yeah, even when like different actors would play like this, or the same even when the same actor would play like different characters, it didn't really get confusing. Mm-hmm. Except for that one guy, he was like, I think his name was like Hercules or something. At the beginning, he wasn't like a big character, and then later he's kind of like the same guy's like playing someone who's like, I don't remember who he was in the second half of the play, but he's always hanging around Thomas Jefferson, and I don't know if they're the same dude or not. I don't know if that's supposed to be the same character or not.
No.
Okay, yeah, that was the one. But like they won't like really a big character in either the beginning or in like the first or second half of the play. They weren't really like a big character, so it didn't really like matter too much.
But most of the time, you're not confused over like which actor is playing which character, because like they just are all like they all are portrayed so like uniquely, and then like their voices are so unique that like you kind of like immediately associate one voice with like the voice with the character, and so it like really clicks in your brain real quickly. I was gonna say something else, and now I'm completely blanking. Yeah, I don't know. It'll come back to me.
Another thing I wanted to mention was with Aaron Burr. I didn't even notice this of it really in the first time. I was when we first watched it, but listening back to the soundtrack, I noticed it is the one thing I noticed the first time we watched it is that people say Aaron Burr so a lot around him. Because that's what the first song he was in is called. Yeah. But then I noticed listening to the soundtrack that people just rhyme everything with his name whenever he's around. In the one song, the 10 Dual Commandments, when Hamilton and Aaron Burr, who were the seconds, are talking.
Yeah.
It's suddenly, the song was just a normal song, and then suddenly they start talking, and everything rhymes with Burr.
And it's obviously they do often rhyme characters' names with things in the song, because that's how songs work. But, with the Aaron Burr, it's a weird thing where, when he's around, it's everything for the entire time he's the focus of the song rhymes with his name.
Yeah, it's he was can we agree that duels are immature?
Sure.
It's doesn't really stick out too much, and it's you're listening to it, you're wait a minute.
His name kind of becomes the focal point of whatever song he's in for at least a little while, and then it goes back to the rhyme pattern changing. It's whenever he's kind of the focus of the song, the rhyme pattern is always the same, and it rhymes with Burr.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And they do that kind of thing a lot in this musical where they not exactly that, but that kind of they associate certain things with the characters super strongly. I was talking about that with their voices, but it's not just, the actors that play them happen to have unique voices. It's also the way that the musical is written, so that there are certain melodies or lines that keep coming back as motifs and themes, and then they also become instantly associated with certain characters.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And I know that a lot of musicals, we use lines and melodies to make callbacks, but I feel like Hamilton just does it really, really well, and they do it a lot.
Yeah.
Every time the king's in it, he's singing the same melody.
Yeah.
And it just makes a lot of really strong character themes, both both musical themes and narrative themes.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it immensely.
Two lines that came back quite a lot were look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now, and I really like that one because it's every time they brought it back, it kind of was in a different context and it meant something different. In the first song, when they bring it up, it's history is happening. Wow, we're so lucky to be alive during such a historic, important time. Which, if you living through history ain't that fun.
But we'll tell you firsthand, it's terrible.
History sucks. But
every major historical event is hell to live through.
But then it's the second time they bring it back. When they bring it back, I guess it's the first time they bring it back, but the second time they say it, is after Hamilton got sent back from the war and after his argument with Washington. And it's just wow, I know you're sad that you can't help with the revolution anymore, but at least you're not dead.
Yeah. And they did that with the line I'm not throwing away my shot a lot too. It was kind of you said, how it was kind of what he was thinking. When they brought it back, it was just kind of reestablishing his motivations and kind of like, it was like his, almost like his inner monologue where he was given an opportunity and he's like, should I take it? And he's like, I can't throw away my shot, gotta go.
Yeah, and it's like, it doesn't do it quite to the same extent where it, like, kind of means something totally different, but it does have, like, a different, like, mood to it at certain times. Like, when you first say it, it's, like, sort of this, like, optimistic, like, motivated, like, yay, kind of.
Like, let's get this bread.
No.
I said it and I'm not taking it back.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like, it kind of varies from, like, being, like, really optimistic to being, like, really determined and angry to being, like, kind of sad.
Yeah.
Almost, like, regretful at times. Like, I gotta do this because I can't, let this opportunity pass me by, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah.
And I also think it's, like, a really cool thing that it's kind of like Hamilton's motif. Like, that's his line that sums up his character throughout the whole musical. And then he dies because he threw away his shot in the duel by shooting up into the air instead of shooting at Burr. And it's just kind of like, oh, damn. And I like that those, like, little layers of meaning that they have, like double meaning kind of things throughout the whole play, like Eliza's gasp at the end, having, like, multiple different interpretations, like, it kind of represents her, like, dying, because
she
does die at the end, I guess.
She dies eventually.
She dies eventually, and they talk about, what she did with the rest of her life, and how she lived for, like, 50 more years, and then, like, it's kind of, is framed, like, kind of her reflecting back on her life, and then so her, gasp at the end could be, like, her dying, and then seeing Hamilton again, but then also, since it's, like, the whole, like, thing of the song is just, like, will our story be forgotten? And then the actress turns and sees the audience in front of her at the end of this extremely long musical all about their story. And it's kind of like, oh, we weren't forgotten.
Yeah.
We might have been forgotten by the public education system. But not by everybody.
Some guy was really motivated to write a musical about Alexander Hamilton.
But, like, literally...
What a bizarre idea to have. Like, I want to know... I'm sure he's, like, answered the question before, but, like, why Alexander Hamilton? Of all the things you could write a Broadway play about, why Alexander Hamilton?
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Like, clearly it worked out for him, but, like, why?
Yeah, and it is funny because it's, like, there's, like, almost a little bit of sad irony to it because it's, like, I took an AP US history class when I was a junior in high school, and we spent, like, 2 whole months on the Revolutionary War and the creation of America, and I learned literally fuck all about, like, every character in this musical. Like, they were like, George Washington was great, and Alexander Hamilton wrote the Federalist Papers, and that's it. They're moving on. Do you want to know who Lafayette is? Tough shit. Thomas Jefferson, he was there. Don't know what he did.
Yeah, maybe...
Aaron Burr doesn't even get mentioned.
I literally had never heard of Aaron Burr until, like, yeah, like, literally it's just, like, our education on the Founding Fathers is George Washington was great, Alexander Hamilton did some things, I guess, Thomas Jefferson did exist, and that's it.
It's so whack. It doesn't, it's like, they don't even tell you really what they did, let alone, like, anything about their life.
They tell you that George Washington was the general in the Revolutionary War and that he was the first president. They tell you that Alexander Hamilton wrote most of the Federalist Papers. Actually, I think they said he wrote all of them, which isn't correct, but he did write most of them.
Yeah, that is the thing, because, like, he wrote 51 of them, and that was, like, you know, like, a big thing in the play where they were like, oh, this guy wrote, like, 10, and this guy wrote, like, 4, and Hamilton wrote 51. When I learned about the Federalist Papers, they led me to believe there was only 51 of them, because they called them the 51 Federalist Papers.
American education.
But at the same time, they barely mentioned Alexander Hamilton. Like, he was like, he wrote them.
They were like, the Federalist Papers were written by the Federalist Party to convince the states to ratify the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton wrote them. And as far as you will know, that is the only thing he ever did.
It's just really whack, because, like, you don't learn about these people in school. And so it's kind of nice to kind of learn about them in the musical, even though it's obviously fictionalized and dramatized, so you gotta,
not very accurate. Probably.
Yeah, you gotta, like, do your own research, but it's based on the actual history, and so you obviously don't take it all as, like, fact. You gotta, like, you know, look into things on your own, but it gives you, like, at least tells you that these people existed, and it gives you, like, a general idea of what they did, like, in the war and stuff.
Yeah, like, I didn't know Alexander Hamilton had anything to do with the Revolutionary War. Yeah. And again, did not know Aaron Burr existed. I have no idea who the
only reason I know Hamilton got shot was because of this musical. Because my AP teacher did mention that, but he only mentioned it because we were talking about Hamilton in class. He was like, yeah, Alexander Hamilton probably wouldn't like how he was portrayed in this musical. Because, you know, Alexander Hamilton was kind of a dick. There was a reason Aaron Burr shot him, and I was like, oh, he got shot?
Yeah, when I first heard that, like, Aaron Burr shot him, which was, again, because of this musical, I also, like, assumed he was, like, assassinated or something. I didn't think it was, like, a duel. Which, why were those ever a thing? Whatever.
I didn't know he had a son. I only knew his son got shot because, you know, my friend who liked the musical was telling me about the musical themes in the song that he got shot in. And then, like, I was like, cool beans. I definitely knew this happened. And then I kind of assumed that his son got shot after Hamilton died. Just because I was just like, well, he's his son.
Yeah, usually children die after their parents.
Yeah, but that wasn't the case. So there's a lot that I didn't know about Hamilton that I learned from this musical. And, like, you looked up a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, because there were some things, like, for instance, I actually learned some things, like, that I didn't know Alexander Hamilton was an abolitionist. That's actually, like, a nice fact to learn about.
That automatically makes him better than, like, 95% of the founding fathers.
Like, I'm sure he was still, like, an asshole and not nearly as likable as he was as, like, the version of him shown in this musical, because I did really like Hamilton in the musical. They did a really good job making him,
I liked a lot of the characters.
They did a really good job making them, like, likable, despite the fact that, like, in the back of your head, these people were probably the worst. But it's, like, it's nice to know that at least one of our founding fathers wasn't a slave-owning asshole, so...
And I mean, it wasn't on, like, the forefront of his agenda, but he was like, hey, eventually, when we get around to it, we should probably not own people, and he was like, you know what, that automatically makes him better than a lot of the other people, so, I mean, I'll take it.
Take it. It's a very low bar to clear, but I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take the fact that he cleared it.
They do make a lot of the characters, like, really likable, like, the king is iconic. I
in
love
like
the
a
king.
weird way. His like weird, crazy ex-boyfriend vibe. That's
Like,
really funny to me.
It's such like a refreshing take on a big bad king of England during the Revolutionary War. Like, instead of it being like, he's an evil tyrant, he's just like, I will kill your friends and family to remind you that I love you.
It was funny. It was
and the guy that played him brought like such a good energy to it. Like, he really got that vibe down pat. That was great casting. Lafayette was also great. He had a lot of like a completely different energy, but a lot of energy to him. I liked his accent. I just liked him a lot. I liked Jefferson. It was like,
in like a weird, like, God, he's such an asshole kind of way.
yeah, like in like before I watched it, I was like, why does the fandom like Jefferson so much? Like, I know the characters are all fictionalized, but Jefferson was just such a total irredeemable piece of human shit. Like in real life. And then I, like, saw him saunter down a staircase with a cane and a jazzy show tune, and I was like, alright, I get it. He's great. Cool.
That's why
everyone likes him. Cause he's like, definitely, like, a antagonist, cause he goes against Hamilton all the time. But he's, like, kind of, like, conniving, but it's in, like, a fun, villainy kind of way where he's, like, fun to watch.
Yeah. He was fun. I really liked the rap battles and like that's such a fun way of portraying like political debates. And like we talked about this before, but usually it's like with musicals, it's like the singing part is kind of more like a meta narrative kind of thing where it's like you're supposed to understand that that's not what's actually happening in universe. It's just like what you're seeing. But then it's like in those scenes specifically, like the people in the background wouldn't be doing choreography or anything. They'd just be like just sort of like bumping their heads and stuff along to it, which made it just sort of break the fourth wall just a little, like crack the fourth wall and make it seem like they're actually trying to imply that Hamilton and Jefferson were having like a rap battle.
And it was so funny, and there was a lot of funny moments in the thing, and like it wasn't like I wasn't expecting it to be funny, but it was funny in like a different way. Like I thought it would be like a kind of like dry wit.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was expecting like since it's a Broadway play about Alexander Hamilton and the Founding Fathers, I was expecting a very, like, dry wit, like, intelligent sort of humor. And you did get some of that in there, for sure. But you also got, like, not that.
Yeah, they did it. It is like a lot of the humor was like, especially with like the different dancing they do, would be like, hey, look at these founding fathers making a fool of themselves on stage. It is.
Like they just like do like a weird dance or something. Yeah. It'd just be really funny because it just like come out of like left field.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that bit of humor.
It was unexpected, but not unappreciated.
Yeah. And then, like, again with, like, the king, like, his songs were really funny in a way that I didn't expect them to be, because he, like, he's, like, has a very classical, like, Broadway show tune, like, song and voice, and then, like, he's just, like, crazy ex-boyfriend. Angry that you left him. And it is just very entertaining.
I just find one thing I find funny about like his like second song, which is like "What Comes Next," I think is what it's called. Yeah, "What Comes Next." Is that he's just talking about like how hard it is to rule a country and how you're all screwed, and it's like they kind of gloss over it in the musical because then at that point they're talking about like Hamilton, like going to law school and becoming a lawyer, but it's like, America was kind of in chaos for about, like, 5 years. We had this, like, you don't even learn that much about it in, like, history class. It's like, we had these disastrous thing before the Constitution called the Articles of Confederation, and it was a whole mess.
It was a straight-up disaster. There was almost, like, a whole other revolt.
There was, like, a small, like, rebellion, and, like, of a bunch of, like, farmers who took, like, pitchforks and literally took, like, pitchforks and torches to, like, this Capitol building.
So, like, King was right. It's pretty hard to run a country, you know. It's been, like, 200 years. We still don't know how to fucking do it. Sick burn, yo. So, yeah.
But, like, I did really like how they characterize people, kind of going back to the thing, because it's like, you know, you don't really know much about, like, how historical figures were from, like, day to day, really. Yeah.
So like, you know some of the, like, you know, like, what they kind of stood for politically, but you don't really get their, like, personality that much.
Yeah, so they kind of just, like, took, like, a couple so they kind of ended up being sort of, like, cartoonish in a way, and I don't think that's, like, a bad thing at all. Like, it was fun, it was good. And they didn't, and, like, it's not like they didn't feel fleshed out or anything. It's just, like, they were, like, they just took, like, a couple, like, traits that you did know about them. And, like, kind of, like, just built off of that. Like, they kind of made, like, Aaron Burr, like, we know that he was kind of, like, he didn't really, like, ever take very, like, strong stances on anything politically. That was, like, his political strategy. So then they kind of, like, made that, like, a big part of, like, his character in the play, was that he, like, not only was he just, like, it's a good political strategy, but he was kind of, like...
That's how he was. Like, you never knew what he was for or against, and he, like, looked down on people who did take strong
and he,
stances.
Like, never, like, in contrast to Hamilton, who was, like, with, like, the... not throwing away my shot thing. Like, Aaron Burr had, like, his song, like, Wait For It. Where it's, like, you know, instead of, like, just being, like, yep, that was his political strategy, like, he probably... Because, like, in real life, he probably did stand for things. He just didn't ever tell people about them, because he didn't want to hurt his political career.
Yeah.
But it's, like, in the play, they just made him this sort of, like, wishy-washy, like... not exactly wishy-washy, like, he... Like, the one thing he stood for was not standing for it.
Yeah, like, he wasn't, like, it wasn't, like, he definitely had, like, a strong presence and stuff, and he was kind of, you know, like, but, like, you know, he like, wishy-washy isn't the right word, but he was just, because, you know, that, like, he wasn't, like, weak or timid or anything. He was just kind of, like, not... Like, where Hamilton was kind of like, go, 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 I'm gonna do this thing right now and stand for what I believe in. And, like, Aaron Burr was, like, his, like, foil character who was, like, the opposite of that.
They took that one way that we know they differed, and, like, kind of just took that as an excuse to make Aaron Burr just Hamilton's complete opposite.
Yeah.
And mostly, like, to make him, like, his foil character, which obviously, in real life, you don't really get that. So, but it's like, this isn't real life, it's a Broadway play, so it's like...
Yeah, so like...
And I kind of like that, because it's like, I'm not really a stickler for historical accuracy. Like, it's a Broadway play, whatever, it's meant to be entertaining, I don't care. I think as long as people are aware, you know, that, like, don't get your history facts from a Broadway play.
Yeah.
Where Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson have, like... rap battles in the Senate. like, as long as you're aware of that, then it's, like, it's totally fine to just, like, enjoy it as its own thing. So it's
but it was, like, an interesting, like, contradiction, because it was, like, whereas Hamilton was very go, 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 and, like, not throwing away my shot, and, like, you know, there was that song where it's, like, you know, like, why do you write like you're running out of time? Like, he was always, like, we gotta fucking get this shit done now, and Aaron Burr was a lot more, like, I guess... like, patient and cunning, where he was, like, not trying to grasp at every opportunity that came his way and not being like, we gotta get this done. He was, like, very much like, I am going to watch how this unfolds and then play my cards right when I see where things are headed.
Yeah. they were really good at writing them as foils, though, because like, to get, like, a good foil, you need to make sure they have, like, a couple of things in common and then are completely different in, like, every way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Aaron and Hamilton both had, like, essentially the same, like, sort of aspirations. They just had complete opposite ways of going about it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good shit.
And it's like, you know, they made, like, Hamilton, since, like, you don't really know much about his personality, like, you know, he, like, he was, like, a good writer and stuff like that, so they just turned him into this, like, very likable, when Hamilton probably wasn't in real life, but very likable, kind of like, almost like dorky kind of dude.
Yeah.
Who, like, who just, like, writes like a madman. He's very eloquent, which he probably was. That's probably fair. He probably was pretty eloquent in real life.
He did write 51 of the Federalist Papers.
And that did successfully convince people to ratify the Constitution. So he probably was very eloquent in real life. That part's probably true.
Yeah.
But, you know, they, like, took the couple traits and, like, just built off of them to make these, like, people who are, like, you know, characters that play really well into, like, the themes. And that's another thing. So they bothered to put themes in it, even though it's, like, a biography, and those usually don't have themes, and you can, like, get away with not having themes because it's a biography. They, like, put themes in it. I think, like, this very, like, aggressively fictionalized version worked really well, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and, like, that aggressive fictionalization, I think that's the correct word, kind of, you know, it has sparked a lot of conversations about, like, kind of fictionalizing real people and, like, kind of almost, like, romanticizing, for lack of a better word, like, making these characters likable when they are based on real people who were, like, all shitty. Like, some of them were shittier than others, but they were all shitty to varying degrees. But because of how aggressively they fictionalized it, and how, like, they made it, like, basically historical fiction based on a biography.
Basically just fan fiction.
They fanficked Alexander Hamilton.
It's just a historical fan fiction.
Yeah, like, I think it's very easy to separate reality from it. Like, it's easy to watch and enjoy it and like the characters without it being, like, without it affecting your view of reality and your view of those people.
I mean, it might affect it a little bit just because, you know, like, from now on, like, whenever anyone mentions Alexander Hamilton, I might probably gonna think of, like, the musical before, like, because you sort of have, like, a positive association, but it's not, like, anything that, like, changes your opinion on the actual people. Because, again, it's like, I may, in the future, have a more positive association with Alexander Hamilton, because I think of the musical and I really like it.
But if you're talking about it in the context of history, you're gonna be like, yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, like, but, like, since I'm aware that positive association is just because it reminds me of the musical, then it's like, that's totally fine, which is what I was saying before. As long as you're aware that, like, historical fiction is still fiction, and to not, like, you know, like, conflate it with history and to be aware that it's probably not very accurate. There's nothing wrong with having some fun with historical fan fiction.
Yeah, and it's like, it's very obvious that they're trying to entertain. You know, they're making characters and themes and a story and not trying to paint a realistic picture of history. Like, it's based on a biography, but it's not a biography anymore. Like, and they never claimed otherwise. They never claimed it to be...
I think where it becomes, like, a problem is when someone who's writing something that isn't historically accurate claims it's historically accurate, tries to pretend it is. But again, they never pretended. They were like, yeah, King George was a fucking crazy ex-boyfriend.
And Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson rap battled over the future of their nation. You know, it's like, they called it an American production, not an American biography.
Yeah.
You know, and I also just take, and I think it's perfectly fine to enjoy it and like the characters, because you can separate the characters from the real people that they are based on. Yeah. And I also just take a lot of joy and thinking about how these like stuffy racist old white dudes would like despise the way they were portrayed in this musical. They would not like it.
Jefferson is rolling in his grave knowing that they let some like African-American dude singing show tunes to portray him on Broadway, and that makes me extremely happy.
Broadway.
Broadway. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like they're like being portrayed as like spunky, fun characters by people of color they would absolutely despise it, and that's hilarious because they were all shitty. They were all shitty people. And Thomas Jefferson owned a bunch of slaves and did terrible things to them. And so having him be portrayed by like a spunky African-American dude with a cane playing show tunes is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's somewhat romanticizing them, but it's also kind of like giving them the middle finger too.
Yeah, because it's like obviously, you know, like one, it's giving so many opportunities to people of color by having it like, you know, like the casting like not give a shit about like what
not even like
people are.
Race blind. I think they were specifically looking for like people of color. Like I think the only white dude in the play is
there were some people in the
George.
ensemble who were white, I think. Again, you know,
it's
they could just be white passing. I don't fucking know. I'm pretty sure the dude playing the king was a white guy.
But again, could be wrong. Don't really know much about them. Could just be white passing.
Yeah. But it's
as far as I'm aware,
most of the cast, if not all of the cast, were people of color. And that gives so many opportunities towards these people because they're so often not given main roles in Broadway, and so,
even when it doesn't like matter.
Yeah, and they're so often just regulated to people like to playing characters that are explicitly a person of color, and it plays into their narrative a lot instead of just letting them play people,
even though it doesn't like matter.
Even when it doesn't matter, and then in this one, they're specifically going against what we know these characters to be, and it's so intentional because of how racist those people, you know, very often were. And so, like, having them played by the people that they specifically didn't include in their fight for freedom is such, like, a power move. And it overrides any romanticization of them because it's also giving them such a huge middle finger. And then especially because they also brought up racism a lot in the play. And part of that was because like Alexander Hamilton and like Eliza were abolitionists, even if it wasn't like on the forefront of like Alexander's like agenda. But like it was kind of like brought up in like kind of like a subtle jab kind of way. Like they would slide it in whenever the characters were like, "Wham, my life is hard." Like in the first song, like, they were talking about how rough Alexander Hamilton's upbringing was.
It did sound pretty rough.
It did sound pretty rough. Obviously, you know, he didn't have a good time, and that's valid. But, like, they were also just, like, and while that was happening, people were being bought and sold and thrown into the ocean while they were getting transported from the only life they've ever known. And it was like, yeah, it's, like, kind of, like, not exactly invalidating, you know, the struggles of the characters, but being like, and while they were worried about this, something probably much more important was happening that they were ignoring.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, a good way to go about it.
And again, I don't think, as long as it's, like, as long as people are aware that it's, like, being sort of romanticized and dramatized, I don't think there's anything, like, wrong with it. As long as people don't, like, conflate that vote. Because it's, like, they're romanticized, you know. Because let's be with these terrible founding fathers that we have are romanticized more in, like, our historical education than they are in this play.
Oh, yeah, they make them seem like way better people. Like, America really tries to sanitize its history. They, like, really downplay how bad a lot of our, like, historical figures were, they, like, they treat slavery kind of like, and then the good guys defeated the bad guys.
Ignoring the fact that we were the bad guys.
Ignoring the fact that we were also the bad guys. And then even after like, in that we didn't enforce, the Emancipation Proclamation, like, everywhere for, like, 3 more years.
I mean,
and then afterwards,
to be fair,
there was
part of that was
segregation.
because there was still a war going on, so they, like, couldn't really enforce it in states that had technically seceded.
That's true.
Like, hey, but then,
like
people are gonna be like,
that,
we're rebelling against you, but you just passed a new law, so I guess we gotta, like, follow that. Like,
and then they kind of downplay the fact that even after that, there was, like, segregation, and people couldn't vote, and there was, like, Jim Crow laws, and, like, violence everywhere, and then, like, they were, like, I saw a tweet talking about, like, the civil rights movement and how it was just, like, and then Martin Luther King Jr. made a speech and everyone decided to be friends again. It's like that, like, and then, like, the Trail of Tears is, like, one sentence they tack on to the end of a lesson, and then they're like, oh, there's the bell, go on to lunch now. And
that's basically what it is, like... all the terrible shit these people do is, like, attack us. So it's like, it doesn't even, like, matter,
Yeah, like, this play does not nearly romanticize these characters anywhere close to as much as our history books and our, like, education system try to romanticize these people. And, like, the way that they handle it and then, like, sneak in kind of, like, jabs against them are, like, way more effective, I think, for making people think about how these people really were, like, in relation to how they're portrayed in the musical than, like, it would have, like... if it wasn't for this musical, we wouldn't even be having a discussion about how we view... like, the founding fathers.
Yeah. And again, even, like, it doesn't have to be that deep, like, again, as long as you make it clear to your audience, like, maybe even put a disclaimer at the beginning, like, hey, this isn't historically accurate, dumbass. Like,
but then again, like, I don't even feel like they should feel the need to do that, because it's painfully obvious that this isn't supposed to be accurate. Yeah, I was just
thinking more about, like, other things that kind of do similar things where it might be, like, less obvious. And then as long as, like, I think it's less important to tell people, hey, you should stop writing historical fiction, and more important to tell people to stop conflating historical fiction or, like, biography, or, like, Hollywood movies about people's lives with, like, being actually history, because it's, like, just teach people that they're dramatized and, like, probably heavily romanticized for the sake of entertainment, and that they should go actually learn what, like, really happened, and then it's, like, it's fine, it's harmless.
Yeah.
Like, as long as we're having this conversation about, like, hey, this probably isn't very accurate, then it's, like, it's probably, like, not doing any harm to anyone. But again, I do think they were a lot more, like, considerate about it than a lot of,
for sure,
like, people
even like, just the fact that they cast mostly people of color to play these people, like, automatically does, like, way more for like, the communities that have been, like, historically disenfranchised, than... like, in, like, it does, like, it does more to, like, it's so obvious that the characters based on these people and not supposed to be these people, they're not supposed to be these people.
It's out of character fanfic.
Yeah, and then, like, the way that they handle it is really good and, like, really well done, and so, like, anybody that is just, like, they're trying to erase history, I was like, I just haven't seen it. They're too stupid to understand things that are said to them.
It's like probably doing the opposite of erasing history, because again, I didn't know jack shit about Alexander Hamilton. And do you think if they were so keen on, like the thing about, like, again, didn't know he was an abolitionist, and you think if they were so keen on making our founding fathers out to be, like, great people, do you think they'd really latch on to Hamilton?
They'd really be like, and he was an abolitionist, and don't worry about Thomas Jefferson, because...
Or George Washington, just ignore them.
Don't worry about the guy that said, give me liberty, give me death, because he owned like 200 people, but Alexander Hamilton, he was an abolitionist, and that's what matters.
He didn't own anyone. Like, you think they'd really be, like, shoving that down your throat? Like, hey, look, this one is less shitty than the other one. But they don't do that.
They don't. Anyway.
I still have more to say.
Yeah.
This is gonna be longer than the first time we recorded.
For sure, which makes sense because we added things.
Yeah.
The pacing is very interesting.
Yeah.
It felt both very short and very long. And I think that was less because of like it didn't feel long in like a bad way. It's like 2.5 hours, and like by the time like when you leave a movie theater and you feel like your entire life has been spent watching that movie. That's kind of how it felt when I finished the musical, which isn't a bad thing. It just means I was really immersed in it. But it felt like the length that it was. But then it felt like it didn't really feel like short in a way. It was just like they focused on parts of Alexander Hamilton's life that I did not expect them to. And so, I thought the bulk of it was going to be,
the Constitution and the Revolutionary War, not in that order, hopefully.
Yeah, the Revolutionary War, Constitution. And that was a lot of it, but they focused on different aspects of it than I thought they were going to. They really didn't talk about the Federalist Papers nearly as much as I thought they would. Considering that was, the one thing that I knew about Alexander Hamilton. And so, and I thought they were gonna, talk about, the build-up to the war and how the war went and the build-up to the Constitution. And so, when they would, kind of skip over, they were and Alexander Hamilton is in America and he meets these other people, and wow, wouldn't it be cool if we really stuck it to the man, and then there's one song and now there's a war, and I was kind of oh, we're here already. It just progressed different, they progressed, the pacing was so much different than I thought it would be in what parts of the story they focused on, so it felt the time skips were, very apparent to me, and I was very much oh, wow, okay, we're moving along.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing. It's just not, I just noticed it because it was so not what I expected it to be.
Yeah, I was expecting it to really just be about the Revolutionary War and the Constitution, not about, his entire life, which I don't know why I thought that. It's literally just called Hamilton. Evidence suggests it is just a biography of Alexander Hamilton. But I wasn't expecting it to be that. But it was, which is good. It's fine. It was good.
Yeah.
It really was his whole life. It kind of sped through his childhood in the first song up until he moved to New York. And then they went right up to his death.
Yeah, and a lot of it's about, him and Eliza, who I didn't even fucking know about. Yeah. So it's kind of that is
didn't know he was married. I mean, I assumed he was, because, everyone was back then, but...
I mean, I knew, based off of what I had heard about the musical, I knew that he had, a wife who was a character in the musical, but I didn't expect it to be, such a main focus, I guess. My voice is giving out on me.
Am I the only one who just sort of assumed he was gonna cheat on his wife with her sister? Because I knew that happened because I had heard that one song Say No to This, so I knew that was a thing that happened, and I just kind of assumed since both of the sisters were in love with him, he was gonna cheat on his wife with his sister.
Since I had heard that song before, because one of my friends is really into musicals, and she has this thing where she likes to pick the weirdest, most sexual song in the musical, and then make me listen to it.
So
I have heard it before. And it is pretty apparent in the song that it's not someone who he, like, knew beforehand. But,
I'd only heard, like, part of it.
So yeah, so, I'm sure if you didn't go into it knowing that, you might have been like, is he going to cheat on her with Angelica? Yeah, but yeah.
That's just what I assumed was going to happen.
Speaking of Angelica, in the, oh god, I don't know the exact name of the song. Like,
I think it's Satisfied. It's the one where it's like they rewind it.
Yeah, like I don't know if it was like Never Be Satisfied or Satisfied. No, it's got the word satisfied in it. I don't.
That was one of my favorite songs.
That was a really good song, and it was like that whole sequence was like superb, alright? It was like when the effect started going and like they kind of like started like having the rewind effects in there and like the voice echoing and everybody started like moving around. I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah, I was like, oh.
It like came across really good because those types of sequences are really like hard to pull off in like a cool way in like a live stage show, and they did it like they handled it like really well. Like they didn't like go too, like they went just hard enough that it looked cool without accidentally going overboard and having it look kind of silly, you know?
Yeah.
Like it could have easily looked a little dumb, but it didn't. It just looked cool, and I was like, what's going on here? What kind of storytelling device is this? And then the song was like really good. She like rapped real fast in parts of it, and I was like, get it.
It's really good voice, and it was so good. And then like the way they incorporated like some of the lines from like Helpless.
It's like telling the full story out of order. I dig it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I also really liked The Room Where It Happened. That was another one of my favorite songs.
One of my favorite songs was Wait For It, which like I wasn't expecting to like so many songs with like Aaron Bursey because he's like the main antagonist, but like it was a really good song.
Yeah, he was a really good character.
Yeah.
You know.
I kind of like how it like, because again he's sort of like presented as very like unprincipled, very much just like, I don't really believe in anything, so I'm just gonna do this. But
you have the backbone of a chocolatey clam.
You have the moral backbone of a chocolatey clam. But then it's like, they kind of like flesh out like maybe why he thought that way, like why he thought that was like the best way to be in this song. And it's like, you don't like necessarily like agree with it,
but you get it. And then like, you know,
I personally like, and I think you're supposed to probably like root more for like the not throwing away my shot kind of determination, which I do, but I just really like the song. It just has such a good like, it's just a good song. It just sounds nice. I just like the song.
It like has like the kind of like he kind of has like it has like a little bit of like a sadness to it.
Yeah.
And like a little bit, it has like this kind of determination to it that he otherwise doesn't really show, because that's kind of like the point of his character. Yeah. Because it's like the point is that like Hamilton's so determined and Aaron Burr's like, you're so foolish about it, but he is determined just in like the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You know, and like he wants to make the best life for like his daughter and his family, just in like a different way than Alexander Hamilton does.
Yeah, and it's also just like a good song. It just sounds really nice, and I really like that one line, like, life doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints.
Yeah.
That's like kind of, it's a good line just on its own, but then it also kind of fleshes out his thing more, where it's essentially like, life doesn't care what your morals are.
Life doesn't care what you stand for, so why would you try so hard to stand for something when it's better for you if you don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does a really good job fleshing out his character. I really like The Room Where It Happened just because it slaps.
It does slap.
Like, they go hard in, like, the vibe, the choreography, they're absolutely busting it down. It's just, it's a good vibe.
It tells you, again, what, like, fleshes out Burr a bit more and, like, what he actually, like, wants. Because before you kind of know, like, you know, he's into politics, like Hamilton is. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you don't really know what he wants in it. It's just like, he wants to be important. Yeah. Like, that's what the song is. Too bad for him, he's so utterly irrelevant that my history books never even mentioned him.
Unfortunate. Yeah, his real It's real good. The music in it all around is real good. I already mentioned that I really like the King songs.
They're fun.
They're fun. There was this other song when I watched it for the first time that I like really, really liked, and I cannot remember which one it is.
Oh no. I really liked the last song, Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story. I think that's just a sweet one. I really liked Aaron Burr and Not Throwing Away My Shot. They those two kind of blend together a bit, to be honest.
There's a lot of songs that just have such like a good energy to it, and everybody's like flipping around, and you're like, oh, this is epic.
Yeah.
I like What Did I Miss a lot.
If we keep going, we're just gonna say we like the whole soundtrack.
That's how it always goes, doesn't it? Every time we review an album, we're like, okay, this one's my favorite, this one's also my favorite, and oops, I said every song on the album. It's good. It's good shit, dude. But that's all I gotta say, I think. Let me double check, but I think I said everything I wanted to say.
Ooh, I wanted to talk about how, like, good, like, the acting was.
Ooh.
Because, like, obviously the acting was good.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing is, like, you know, like, sometimes in some of, like, the more sad or emotional things, it would almost look like they had, like, tears in their eyes, which is normal acting thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I guess I was kind of surprised because it's, like, you're on a stage
in
front of a black... Like, no one's gonna be able to see it. So, like, why bother? But,
like, nobody can see it. Nobody can see your facial expressions as well when you're on a stage and there's not gonna be, like, camera close-ups. And also, it's like, when an actor needs to cry for a scene, they have, like in, like, a movie, they have, like, a chance to, like, kind of be like, alright, here we go. Get the waterworks going. And, like, they can't, like, before the take starts, and you can't, like, do that.
Yeah, and so it's just,
in a play.
Impressive that they could do it, and impressive that they gave enough of a shit to even bother, because no one would be able to tell.
Mm-hmm. Good shit, good shit. Good. Got anything else?
Just like the only other thing I have is like in the Skylar Sisters song, they're just like, and Peggy, because like the one never like...
She never comes back again.
They were just like, she exists, but she's not important to the story.
Yeah, it's kind of an anticlimactic point to leave it on, but it was pretty funny. I liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, good musical, good time, enjoyed a lot.
Yes.
So, thanks for listening to us ramble again for the first time in a long time.
Hopefully we'll be back to doing this once a week.
Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. No promises. We are disaster people. But thank you for joining. We'll see you around. This is definitely longer than the last time we recorded it, but hopefully the audio isn't shite.
Yeah, and hopefully we said everything we actually wanted to say and didn't forget half of it.
Yahee! Alright. Bye, I guess.
Bye.